Welcome to week 2, where we will examine the human rights of the poor. We shall seek to address this week's big question: how are universality claims challenged by the plight of the world's poor? The poor make up a significant proportion of the world's population. The World Bank claimed in 2018 that 46% of the world's population survives on less than $5.50 per day per person and struggles to meet basic needs. Human rights, if it does anything, should give voice to the powerless. The question for us this week is, how much voice is it actually giving the poor? When considering poverty, we must take account of globalization, and we shall see that poverty for many is a byproduct of globalization, as are the growing levels of inequality around the world. While the World Bank and other financial institutions can trumpet reduced absolute poverty in the last 20 years, this measure, $1.90 per person per day, does not take account of all those living on less than $5.50 per day. As we shall see, those living just above the absolute poverty line of $1.90 per day are perilously poised to fall right back in it when there is any kind of shock, such as a global pandemic. Let us hear from a poor woman in America and a poor man in Bangladesh.
My name is Cora. I'm married with 3 teenage children and live in a suburb of Chicago, USA. I worked as a waitress in a local restaurant, and my husband was a mechanic in a local car repair garage. Last year, my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. At first, his treatments were paid for by his health insurance, but now he's too unwell to work, so was dismissed. We also lost his health insurance. This means he can no longer have his treatment. I have to look after him at home, so I can't work now either. I have no money to pay bills anymore, so our water supply has been cut off. I'm worried they'll cut off my electricity supply.
My name is Abesh, and I live in Dhaka, Bangladesh, with my wife and 6 children. We live in a one-room dwelling in a very poor area of the city, where everyone lives cheek by jowl. The area is dominated by gang lords, who control access to everything from water to food, and they charge us so much for these vital supplies. During the monsoons, everything we own gets engulfed with floodwater. My brother, a sewage worker, got swept away down a drain last rainy season. I never saw him again. During the dry season, we have to worry about being engulfed by flames. My wife and I both have jobs, but they are very dangerous and are the kind of jobs you can lose tomorrow. Neither of us have job security or benefits. Together, we worry about keeping our children fed, making sure they get some schooling, and worrying about their health.
Globalization has resulted in significant gains for the super rich and for the middle classes. However, the gap between the very rich and the very poor is widening. We will look at evidence that suggests that this growing inequality is impacting negatively on the poorest half of the world's population. What can human rights law do to address the rights of the poor? Next week, we shall examine the human rights of refugees.